Good day to all. Welcome to Extreme Recap. A startling image of a woman dying from an overdose is shown to us at the beginning of the movie. She was a single mother of 2 daughters, as evidenced by the photos of the scene. Rose, her youngest daughter, surprises everyone when she knocks on the door at that exact moment. The scene then shifts to the present, when Rose is working as a therapist at a mental health facility. She is currently caring for Carl, a manic patient who has repeatedly stated that he will die. Rose tries to console him, but Carl continues to mumble. Rose gets ready to leave, so she doesn't say anything for a few days after finishing her work. However, right then, at that point, she is doled out another case including a patient named Laura. Rose reluctantly meets her and learns that the poor girl is depressed after witnessing the unthinkable act by her professor. Laura asserts that she is not insane, whereas Rose asserts that it is normal to be paranoid when someone dies. She is actually acting strangely because a creepy being with a strange smile is always following her. Laura suddenly collapses to the floor and begins to scream as if she has witnessed something as the entity appears in the form of a random group of people and announces, "You are going to die." She quickly makes a call for help after sensing the degrading situation and turning around. She is shocked to see Laura upright, calm-looking, and sadly sporting a haunting smile. And Laura does the unthinkable with a broken piece of pottery before assistance arrives, leaving Rose sickened. I strongly urge you to watch that scene. After this tragic incident, 2 detectives, one of whom is Joel, Rose's former boyfriend, arrive at the hospital. The editing is incredible. They pose her few inquiries, however she is too unnerved to even consider talking. Rose only reveals that Laura committed the unthinkable with a creepy smile on her face. Rose finally returns home after the formalities are completed. She takes a shower and is about to make herself a drink in an effort to unwind, when she sees Laura standing in the corner, a frightening sight. Trevor, her fiancé, enters the room simultaneously, causing her to be briefly startled. He notices that everyone is worried and asks if everything is okay. Trevor will be our typical jackass who never trusts the main character. Rose responds with a head nod and swiftly shifts the subject. The couple attends a dinner outing with Rose's sister Holly and her husband later that evening. Rose seems to be distracted, despite the fact that they are all talking about their respective work lives. She can't stop thinking about the awful scene where Laura died. Rose decides to return to work the following day, but she finds it difficult to move on from the previous incidents. She approaches the receptionist, intrigued, and asks to see the report on Gabriel, the professor who did the unthinkable in front of Laura. While Rose is looking at the report, Holly calls, inviting Rose to her son's birthday party. While Holly and Rose are talking on the phone, Rose looks out the window and sees a figure in the distance that looks like Laura. However, she dismisses it as a figment of her imagination and moves on to test her patience when, as she passes Carl's room, she astonishment observes him smiling in the same troubling manner, like Laura did. He starts shouting at her all of a sudden and says that she is going to die. Rose is terrified by this, so she urgently requests that nurses restrain him. Nevertheless, in a shocking turn of events, it is shown that Carl has been asleep all along. When Mr. Desai, the hospital's supervisor, learns that everything that happened before was just her imagination, he becomes worried about Rose's mental health and tells her to take a week off. Later in the evening, Rose is alone at home when the house alarm abruptly begins to beep, panicking her. With scissors in hand, she cautiously approaches the front door, but when she returns to the living room, she discovers that the back door is open. Rose gets a call from a security guard at that unsettling moment, telling her to look behind her in an odd way. But the phone rings again, revealing that the previous call was just a hallucination to make things even more confusing. Rose quickly responds, and to her relief, it turns out to be a real security guard. In a flash, her house was visited by a number of police officers for an investigation, but they found no evidence of an intruder. Trevor also got there and asks Rosie a worldly question. With a confused expression, she is fine. She responds positively, but there is still one issue. Rose continues to have hallucinations and can't seem to locate her pet cat's mustache over the next few days. She seeks assistance from her former therapist, physician Madeline Northcott, leading people to believe that she is mentally unstable. She is also concerned about her own well-being. Rose tells her everything, including Laura, the creepy smiles, her missing pet cat, and everything in between. Dr. Madeline theorizes that she is still suffering from the traumatic death of her abusive and mentally ill mother when she frantically declares that she is becoming more and more paranoid every day. Even though she hasn't been feeling well, Rose goes to her nephew's birthday party this weekend. Rose thinks she has overcome her illusions because the first few minutes are uneventful. But then she lets her nephew use the present she bought him. Additionally, the mustache of her dead cat can be found inside. Rose breaks down in tears at the shocking information. She also frantically tries to persuade everyone that she wasn't the one who did it. In the midst of this, she notices that one of the partygoers is creepily smiling at her. She suffers injuries and breaks a glass table as a result of the horrifying startles. After a brief trip to the hospital, Trevor brings Rose home in the following scene. Before getting out of the car, Rose tries to talk to him about the ghost that is keeping her awake. However, Trevor posits the possibility that she inherited her mother's mental illness. He simply continues to destroy it. Rose continues her investigation into Gabriel later until she hears her mother's voice calling to her from the darkness. Determined to ignore it, she attempts to go to bed. But behind her, a figure resembling her mother appears. Early morning. Rose goes to Gabriel's neighbors to learn more about his death. She is greeted upon arrival by Victoria, his wife, who reveals that the professor had also witnessed a suicide before the unthinkable she. The leads then went into a room where several of Gabriel's sketches were on display. They are all smiling in the same creepy way. Rosa claims that Gabriel was not irrational and that the experiences he had were real after learning all of this. She asserts that similar circumstances are also affecting her. Sadly, Victoria is enraged by this only because she believes Rose is making fun of her late husband and kicks her out of the house immediately. Rose asks Joel, her former boyfriend, for help in looking into Gabriel-related cases. For the sake of their previous relationship, the detective agrees to do so despite his reservations. After that, Joel checks his reports on his laptop and finds that the professor saw an unthinkable act by a woman named Angela. He then, coincidentally, conducts a similar investigation on that woman. Finds that she had likewise seen a self-caused passing. When they view the recorded film, they see a man grinning prior to committing the unbelievable before Angela. Rose then returns to her home with the intention of disclosing everything to her fiancé. When she finds out that Trevor has brought Drive Madeline to check on her because he thinks she has gun mentality, her plans are thrown off. Rose is enraged by this. Additionally, she asserts that Trevor abandoned her in her hour of need. After that, she storms off and goes to Holly's house in the hope of getting some help from her. Rose explains how she acquired her patient's curse and eagerly shows her sister the printed images of the other victims. Holly, on the other hand, doesn't believe in curses and likens her to her late mother. This triggers a flood of outrage inside Rose, who has contacted her limit of being continually moved around by each one. She criticizes her sister as a result, describing herself as centered and egotistical. Rose then goes back to her car and tries to relax. Holly abruptly leaves the house and taps on the car window. Rose's sister's face suddenly flips over when she looks outside. That I get you. No one ought to jump in fear. However, in actuality, she is hallucinating once more. Later in the night, Rose is at a restaurant trying to keep herself busy when Joel calls suddenly and tells her he researched the creepy smiles. Throughout the night, I discovered something shocking. There are 20 cases, 19 of which are self-inflicted deaths with similar patterns. However, in the 20th case, Robert, a man, broke the pattern by killing someone. The unthinkable was done by a random man who saw the incident and continued the pattern. Rose decides to meet Robert in person after becoming intrigued by the survivor. Rose approaches Robert and pretends to be a patient going through a similar ordeal shortly after arriving at the prison where Robert is held. Robert responds that the entity thrives on trauma and that the only way to escape is to brutally murder a witness in front of them, traumatizing them. Rose becomes enraged upon hearing this and vehemently proclaims, "I cannot kill anyone." Here, she accidentally reveals that the entity has cursed her. Because of this, the guards quickly arrive and remove Robert as he starts to panic. Later, Dr. Madeline unexpectedly pays Rose a visit when she gets home. A phone call soon interrupts the conversation that the two were having. Responds reluctantly, only to find that the caller is Dr. Madeline herself. This indicates that the entity is the person next to her. The entity says the words as soon as it begins to smile. There is less time left. Rose is shown driving to the hospital with a knife in the following scene. She confronts Carl immediately in the patient's room. Rose was warned by Mr. Desiwa-sen that she shouldn't be around the patient at that moment. He also tries to find out how she's doing lately. Rose, however, ignores everything and suddenly pulls out a knife and repeatedly stabs Carl. She seems like she wants to kill the poor man to spread the curse. Nonetheless, despite numerous abdominal stab wounds, Carl keeps smiling at her. He has absolutely no pain. Rose realizes that the entire sequence was yet another hallucination as soon as she wakes up in her car the following moment. Morgan quickly approaches her vehicle and inquires as to why she is there. Morgan immediately contacted Joel after noticing Rose's car and the presence of a knife, and she hurriedly left without providing an explanation. Rose drives to her childhood home that she has abandoned in response to the situation. Rose wants to cut herself off from the rest of the world because she is afraid she will hurt someone, and this is the only place she can be away from them. Rose, when you get to the house, you'll hear this strange noise. She also discovers the spirit of her mother when she goes to investigate. However, our brave protagonist is no longer afraid. She confronts the entity and demands that it immediately cease bothering her. After this, a shocking flashback to the day Rose's mother passed away takes place in the movie. It is shown that the woman was still alive when Rose began. The child, however, did not seek assistance because she resented her abusive mother and desired her death. The entity takes on a new appearance now, revealing a terrifyingly tall figure. She is pinned to the ground by its swift attacks, claiming that it will afflict her mind forever. Rose, however, summons her inner strength and strikes the entity with a lamp, igniting it, allowing her to escape. She then walks off. Rose drives back to Joel's house in the hope that he will let her stay the night, the house symbolically letting go of her trauma. The latter nods in agreement and assures her that he is at her side, smiling creepily as he speaks. Rose rushes out of the house, alarmed, only to discover that she is still outside her previous residence. This demonstrates that her previous experience was purely a dream. The real Joel calls her name shortly thereafter, sending her into a state of panic. She rushes back inside and blocks off the house to prevent Joel from inheriting the curse. The entity immediately sheds its skin to reveal its true form. Rose experiences a nervous breakdown at this location, resulting in paralysis brought on by trauma. Then, in a startling sight, the entity uses her mouth to enter her body. Joel is able to break through the front door in the final scene, but he only sees Rose setting herself on fire with a smile on her face, effectively inflicting the curse on him. Turn on notifications. Please subscribe for more videos like this, and like the channel to support it. Thank you very much for watching.